Hello everyone, PenguinSal here again, and we are coming at you with the review of the demos we played in Day of Demos 5. I know we've already gotten to 5, now that we're doing 2 per week, we've been able to cut through quite a bit of demos. Hopefully you guys have been enjoying what you've been seeing on these, and we're going to talk about the demos that we saw today. So, the first game we started with was actually one that we were going to start with last on Day of Demos 3, but it had an executable issue. But we were able to talk to the devs, and they said they got that figured out. So we figured we would give it a shot now, since we never got to touch it at all. And that was called Toads of the Bayou. So Toads of the Bayou immediately reminded me of Into the Breach, in that it's that kind of like real-time strategy, and you control like the players on a little tiny square board, including their movements and their attacks. I did think it played out interesting in that all the moves and attacks and your different actions were cards, so it was essentially a deck builder. Some of the attacks and things were pretty smooth and pretty nice. I actually thought the best part about the game, besides the art style, which was fantastic, both the card art, which had all these little like revolutionaries, but they were these toads, and the art is charming pixel art. We love the model of the little toad that you play as. Besides the art style, I thought the best thing about this game was the combat. I thought the combat played pretty smooth. Like I said, it did remind me of Into the Breach, in that there were some mechanics for like pushing enemies into like walls and things to do more damage, and there were obstacles and things, and you had like these buildings you were supposed to defend. But other than that, that's where a lot of the similarities there actually end, because all of your actions are cards, which I had an issue with some of these in that I didn't like the way that the ranged cards were worded, because they said they attacked non-adjacent enemies, which in this case actually meant enemies that at a distance that were in a straight line from you, which technically is not adjacent, but not adjacent also means diagonal, and it also means across the map could technically be not adjacent. So I did take issue with that, the way that was worded. I also thought it was strange that at the end of these battles, you would earn rewards and resources that you would have to use to build these buildings. And then you'd have to build the buildings and protect them, but the only thing the buildings actually did for you was that you could buy more cards from them. And every time you went to them, they offered the same cards every single time. Even if it was 3 of the same card, they always offered the exact same thing. So I thought it'd be nice if they rotated or changed out in case they were offering cards you didn't want at all, which did happen frequently. There were a lot of cards I just wasn't interested in. And I thought it was also interesting that you were supposed to protect these buildings, but the enemies never actually targeted them. The only time a building took damage was when I pushed an enemy into it from my own action, which I thought was a little strange. Like I said, it was a demo, so I'm hoping it looked like they were promising more cards and more characters and things further into the game, because I also thought it was strange that your character leveled up, but when he leveled up he didn't gain anything. Maybe he was gaining additional resources, but that's not exactly very fun on a level up. I would have preferred, more max health, or maybe other stats where he got more attack, or he drew more cards on a turn, or he had more energy to spend on his turns. But none of that happened when he leveled up, so I wasn't exactly sure if anything happened when you leveled up or not. It also really looked like the game would have been a lot more fun if you had multiple guys to control, but that looked like it wasn't going to be the case. You'd have your one toad and all of your cards would be his actions, but that seems like it would get potentially a lot more difficult when there's a lot of guys on the map and it's more likely you get surrounded. I also thought it was strange that the game had music, but it definitely seemed to be not balanced properly. The sound effects were extremely loud, and the music was incredibly quiet, except for at the end when you beat the demo, they played really loud music. But otherwise, you essentially couldn't tell there was music playing throughout the demo, and obviously that always kind of bothers me. I think music is a big part to building the ambiance of these games. But Toads on the Bayou was an interesting one. We'll keep an eye on it to see if it does offer a lot more content with its full release. We're glad we were able to check it out. If you want to check it out, there is a link for it down in the description of this video. If you want to try the demo and see if you like it. Like I said, it is real-time strategy in a sense, but also deck builder. So it's got some cool mechanics, especially in the combat. So check out Toads of the Bayou. The next demo we played was for a game called Backpack Hero. It's possible you've heard of this one because it's either an early access or has a complete full release. I know it's technically been out and discussed for a while now. I had heard good things about this one in the past, but I had yet to check it out. I saw this demo because the game is being sponsored right now in the Steam Strategy Fest, so it's currently on sale at the time of this recording. So we figured we'd try the demo in case it was something we were interested in picking up. I have to say, I thought this was by far the best demo we played today, by a pretty good margin. I thought that the combat was actually interesting in that it is a roguelike, but it's not a deck builder per se. It's you actually get all these different items that you put into slots in your backpack, and then while you're in combat, you can use any of the items that you have currently equipped in your backpack. Some things can only be used once per turn, some things can be used as many times as you want, assuming you have the energy for them. Because in that sense, it does play out like a pretty standard roguelike in the way you deal damage and you generate block and you use energy for your different actions. But this one had some pretty cool mechanics in it with the different things you could put in your backpack. First of all, when you level up, you gain more slots so you can fit more things in the backpack, which becomes essential. It actually becomes pretty difficult to manage all the things because there's some synergies to items based on what they're next to, and there's also this mana system where you can pick up these mana stones and use those to like charge wands or other like jewelry type weapons, which we had a pretty fun combo where we had a bunch of mana and we were using it on this one ring that was making our sword stronger and stronger every turn. I thought it was a lot of fun. We had some cool armor where we gained some block and we gained a lot of thorns. So every turn we were starting with 13 block and generating 9 thorns a turn. So I thought this one was actually a lot of fun. I thought it seemed to have a lot of replayability, and I've heard the full version has a lot more characters. So I'm interested to see how that would play out and if they have different, abilities or different items they can find. But I thought this was by far the most fun of all the demos that we played today. We got far in the run. It was the longest demo, too. It had 3 full acts in the demo itself. So I'm interested to see what the full version of this would offer. Like I said, I think this one is a no-brainer for anybody that likes traditional roguelikes, especially if they're interested in kind of a strategy building, like puzzle game, in slotting all of the things that you want into your backpack, and sometimes you have to slot things you don't want in. I thought this one was a lot of fun. I would definitely consider checking out Backpack Hero. I'm considering getting the full version now since it is on sale. So it's possible to come back and check this one out. But if you are interested in Backpack Hero, there is a link for it down in the description below if you want to wishlist it or check out the demo or potentially purchase it. The next demo we played on our Day of Demos 5 was a game called BeaureCard. This one I didn't know a lot about, but it looked interesting enough to me, so I figured we would try it out. Like I said, it is a demo, so, really no harm in trying it out. So, the first thing I would say about this one is I'm not really a fan of the way that the demo itself was structured. You have to go through a pretty long tutorial that kind of explains all the different effects in the game and all the different, it's kind of like a glossary and explains the different verbiage that they use. And that takes about 10 minutes. And then the demo gameplay itself took about 5. So we read through a lot of tutorial to get to very little gameplay. I thought the gameplay was actually kind of interesting. It is a deck builder, and it kind of played out like a traditional card game, more like a TCG type game, where you would put cards down on the field and you would deal damage to your enemy or block damage or heal. But I thought the most interesting concept, and this was its unique selling point, was that your health was actually your deck size. So every time you took direct damage, you would actually lose cards off the top of your deck. You could heal, which would put the cards from your discard pile back onto your deck to be used later and keep you alive. But the matches would end when a player would try to draw a card and they wouldn't have enough cards to draw. That would be like their life running out, their HP running out, which I thought that was actually an interesting concept. I feel like it really did play out kind of like a traditional TCG trading card game. That being said, the demo was just so short We really didn't get a lot out of it. It's hard to really be enticed with such a short demo that really doesn't showcase everything this game has to offer. Like I said, if you want to check it out, it's called BeaureCard. We will have a link for it down in the description if you feel like checking this one out. Like I said, it had some fun mechanics. Other than the health point thing, I don't think there was anything super unique about it. So I'm not sure we will be going back to this one. But yeah, if you want to check out BeaureCard, there is a link for it. The fourth demo we ended up playing on our Day of Demos 5 was called Dungeons and Degenerate Gamblers. This one I thought was pretty unique. It's essentially a deck builder roguelike, but the combat plays out using blackjack. Just a classic blackjack card game of trying to get to 21 based on the cards you play. You can hit and stand. So I thought that was an interesting concept. The only thing is, I did think it was odd that one of the traditional blackjack rules is if you can play 5 cards without getting to 21, it's an automatic victory. That rule did not take place in this game, but that's just a small issue. It just was something that, I get later on why it wouldn't happen because you end up playing so many cards. They did have some pretty unique cards in there instead of just being, the basic suit cards, the 4 suits and the 13 cards in each suit, so 52 deck. There were a lot of things about like negative point values or affecting your opponent's deck or destroying cards you didn't want in your deck. There was a lot of different like weird cards you could get, which I think that adds to a lot of the incentive to keep playing, to see the different cards. The way we lost our first run I did think was kind of not great. And that they had a card that reflected our damage dealt to them. So we would have lost if we won the hand or lost the hand. We would have been taking the damage and losing either way. So I thought that was kind of a lame way to lose, but I thought this one played out actually pretty interesting. Especially the 4 different suits actually had different abilities. Like if you won a hand using spades, it would actually generate shield for you to block incoming damage later on, which was the deck we went with, so I can't speak very much about the other suits, but we went with spades. But they each had different abilities based on the suit, which I thought that was a little way to enhance the gameplay a little bit. Like I said, mostly it's traditional blackjack, you're just trying to get to 21. But it had some pretty interesting things to it. There was some chips you could earn by beating your opponents and then spending that on different cards or health or other different perks. This one was called Dungeons and Degenerate Gamblers. If you want to check this out, there's a link for it down below. If you play the demo, let me know. Let me know what you think of it. The 5th demo we ended up playing was a game called Mind Over Magic. I'd been hearing good things about this demo lately, so I figured we would check this one out. I thought it was a little complicated early on, in that there's a lot of things for you to keep an eye on and to consider. There are tutorials that spawn up over time, but essentially what you're trying to do is rebuild this magic academy, really from the ground up. You physically have to build walls and doors and roofs to make this magic school, and then you have to use the teachers to train up the students, and once the students become adept at magic, they have to go off and complete trials to push back this dense fog that's been overtaking the land. Essentially, you lose the game if the fog takes over your school. You can see when it's going to happen. It says, how many in-game days it's going to take before the fog gets there. But you also have to watch your character's sanity levels. You have to watch their food levels, their sleep levels, the whole while you are training them up to get them more adept in different types of magic that they can use for different things around the school, both combat and otherwise. This one I thought was interesting. I see why it had been getting some acclaim. I thought it was pretty fun. Like I said, it was a little complicated early on, but I think once you get the hang of it, building up the school and designing it is actually pretty cool. And I feel like you start caring about the students and you want them to succeed. Thankfully, in our run, the students actually became more powerful than their teachers before them, so we never had to worry when we sent them off. And it's cool, too, because when the students graduate their trial, they can either go off and do quests for you, or they can become teachers at the school, And when they become teachers at the school, they actually become a more aged version of themselves. So they become like an adult. It's actually that's pretty fun. But yeah, you have to worry about having enough resources to make their meals, and you have to make sure there's not rain getting in through the roofs, and you have to make sure everyone has a place to sleep. And all the while you're crafting wands to get more students, and you're researching other things that you can craft, and all the while you're also managing like this book that's down in the basement that is essentially going to help you defeat the dread that it's called. That's like the darkness that's approaching. I actually thought this one had quite a bit to it. I thought this is definitely a fun game for people that like these kinds of things. Honestly, it reminds me a little bit of like The Sims, where it's kind of like you assign people to do things and they kind of just go about their day and they do whatever they're assigned to do, and then when they run out you assign them something else, all while making sure they have what they need to live. So that was called Mind Over Magic. I do think this one is worth keeping an eye on. There's not a full version of this game out yet, but we will continue to monitor this one going forward. The last demo from our Day of Demo 5s was a game called Constance. This one I've been looking into recently because I really liked the art style. It's, I would say, cartoonish necessarily. It's a little reminiscent to me of both Hollow Knight and Celeste, honestly both in the art style and the way the game plays out. So essentially you play as Constance, who has a magic paintbrush that they use to fight off enemies and traverse the map. I said, really, I would be surprised if there wasn't direct inspiration from both Celeste and Hollow Knight, just because that's really how it played out to me. You have a nice dodge roll mechanic that you can use both in combat and also to avoid obstacles throughout the map. You get some interesting traversal abilities to let you kind of do some platforming. And the whole time you're monitoring your paint level, because if your paint level gets to 0, you have to start using your health to service these attacks. That's called being corrupted. That got frustrating at times. Honestly, I think this game has a lot of potential. Like I said, Hollow Knight and Celeste, both games with great gameplay that seems to factor right into Constance. We didn't get super far into this demo. I had a personal issue with it in the sense of anybody who knows me when I play these games, I hate using arrow keys in any games. I play every game we play on here, we play with keyboard. We like WASD movement, and this game had arrow key movement with WASD attacks. So our wires were getting crossed the whole time we were playing it, and it led to a little bit of frustration. I'm hoping when the game comes out, it will allow for rebinded keys so that we could play it the way that we would like. Since the demo didn't allow you to change any of the controls. I know it did say it recommended controller, but like I said, we do mouse and keyboard for all these games, so we'd like to be able to rebind. But other than that personal issue, I think the game itself definitely has an opportunity to be difficult, both in the platforming and the combat. They had an interesting system where they had like these shrines you could meditate at, which is essentially the quick save where you would heal. But you could also collect these shards from just these crystals that were growing on the ground, or essentially dealing damage to enemies or killing enemies. You'd get these crystal shards, which, so when you died, you could actually come back to the place you died instead of going back to the shrine where you last saved. My only issue with that system, was the fact that you came back at the same health you were at when you died, essentially. So if you had no health and you died, you would come back at essentially 0 health. You'd have, 5 health, and then there's a good chance you could die again in the same spot. So I thought that mechanic would have been a lot nicer if you could heal. So, if you were struggling with a part and you kept going back to it, you could come back with full health or more health than you had when you failed. But I said Constance had a lot of really good things. I thought the art style was nice. I thought the music was nice. I think the gameplay has a chance to be really good. So if you want to keep an eye on Constance, there is a link for it down in the description if you want to wishlist it or check out the demo. It seems like it has a chance to be a really solid game. So those were all the demos that we played during Day of Demos 5. There was one more we were going to play, We'll have to check into it and see if it's appropriate. It said it had a lot of like content warnings, including things that I didn't know if they'd be okay to stream. So potentially we'll check that one out outside of a stream and see if it looks like something that would be okay, or if we'll just have to, you know, play it on our own time. But yes, I hope you guys enjoyed the review of Day of Demos 5. This was our thoughts on all the games from that. We will continue to be posting these Days of Demo reviews here on YouTube. Let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment below. Tell me what your favorite demo from here was. I'll tell you straight up, my favorite demo from the day was Backpack Hero. I thought that seemed like a really well put together game. If you liked the video, feel free to give it a like. If you haven't subscribed to the channel and you'd like to do so, it really would help us. We're trying to grow the channel and, you know, get more viewers and, you know, progress in this game of YouTube. It is free to subscribe if you feel like doing that. I appreciate you guys watching this. I hope you enjoyed another day of demos, reviews, and, you know, we'll get back to you guys next time. Thanks.